described as an independent woman and devoted mother. 43-year-old Susan Osborne thought she'd hit the jackpot in 2017. She was living in Holtville, Alabama with her son, her 2 dogs, and her husband of 3 years, Jerry Osborne. By all accounts, she was content in life. But then she went missing alongside her son, 14-year-old Evan Chartrand. And as investigators dug deeper into the lives of Susan and her family, it came to light that all was not as it seemed. Susan was originally from Michigan, but moved to Alabama in 2005 after marrying the father of her first child, Evan. Even though they divorced shortly afterwards, the mother of one decided not to return to her home state despite being far away from her extended family. Eventually, Susan met another man and gave birth to a daughter. However, the relationship disintegrated around 2009. Another 5 years would pass before a new opportunity for love arose in the form of Jerry Osborne, an Air Force veteran and 911 dispatcher. Susan admired how good he was with her children, and she saw him as generous and gentle. On January 25, 2014, the pair tied the knot, and the family moved to Holtville, where Jerry had purchased a home on Waterview Lane near Highway 111. At first, Jerry seemed like a cautious and protective man. He had an intricate and high-tech security system installed in the home and several CCTV cameras. But as friends and family would later notice, it seemed that Jerry's vigilant behavior began crossing into the territory of controlling. By 2015, Susan had started distancing herself from her loved ones. They would later discover that this was because her new husband was monitoring her calls and texts. Similarly, Susan's brother, Brian, reported that in January 2015, she and her family came to visit her ill father and planned to go ice fishing later on during the trip. Both Susan and 14-year-old Evan loved to fish. However, the family never showed up to their scheduled activity. Instead, Susan messaged Brian to tell him she, Jerry, and the children were on their way back to Alabama. Her family never got to say goodbye. Loved ones also added that at the time of Susan and Evan's disappearance in 2017, they'd met Jerry less than a handful of times. In 2016, Susan grew concerned when she discovered a photo of her husband on Craigslist, advertising himself as a male escort. She recognized him by his distinguishable tattoos. She believed that he was working as an escort behind her back and emailed a friend to admit to what she'd found. She stated that she was going to start preparing to leave Jerry, noting that she'd need to get a job so that her children would receive health insurance and secure somewhere to stay. Susan also asked her friends not to mention any of this by text, confessing that Jerry read all of her messages. The friend Susan contacted, Holly Morris, had reportedly been afraid for the safety of Susan and her children for some time and encouraged her to leave. Holly and Susan had met 9 years earlier when they lived in the same neighborhood and had remained best friends even after Susan moved to Holtville. Despite her concerns and plans, though, Susan never left Jerry. She emailed Holly sometime after her initial message and stated that she and Jerry had worked things out and that she still loved him and wanted to give things another go. Holly remained worried, but recognized there was only so much she could say to her friend to encourage her to go. For Mother's Day in May 2017, Susan's mother, Linda, traveled to Alabama to visit her and the children. Their time together was noted to have been completely normal. Similarly, on May 16th, Susan and Jerry helped Holly and her fiancé finish packing. The couple plans to move out to Florida as part of Holly's fiancé's job. 10 days later, on May 26th, Susan spent time with her daughter, who was not living with her at the time, though Susan had visitation rights. The next day, she spoke with Holly on the phone and noted that Evan was off school because he was sick. The two spoke again the following day and exchanged a few texts the day after that on the 29th. Then all communication with Susan and Evan ceased. Holly, for her part, thought that Susan was simply busy. Life sometimes got in the way of their communication, but never for that long. Susan's mother became alarmed when she was repeatedly unable to reach her daughter or her grandson as the weeks passed. While at first, she brushed off their lack of communication as a phone bill that hadn't been paid or maybe even a broken phone, the knot of worry in her stomach became more and more pronounced as time went by. Linda eventually decided to send her daughter an old-fashioned letter, but it came back as undelivered. 2 months had passed before Evan and Susan were officially reported missing on July 29, 2017. 2 days later, on July 31st, officers from the Elmore County Sheriff's Office visited the family's residence in Holtville to carry out a welfare check. Upon their arrival, they spotted Susan's car still in the driveway. Jerry was the one to answer the front door, explaining that he was in the middle of cleaning. A strong smell of incense and candles wafted out from inside the building, and there was a burned barrel, a light in the back garden. When pressed about the whereabouts of his wife and stepchild, Jerry told investigators that he and Susan had fought on Memorial Day, May 27th, and that she and Evan had climbed into a truck with a man he didn't know and hadn't come home. He said he believed they were heading to Birmingham, and noted that the driver never left the vehicle, although he was able to describe him as 6 foot tall with a beard and sunglasses. Jerry then claimed he'd gone to visit his parents and that when he had returned, Evan and Susan's belongings were gone, and they had vandalized the home, spray painting rude words on the floors and walls. This, he claimed, was the reason he had repainted some of the walls and replaced some of the flooring with new carpet. After the officers left, Holly contacted them and told them all she knew, from Jerry's red flags to the incident with the escort advertisement to the couple's reconciliation. With this information in hand, investigators obtained a search warrant that same day and returned to the house. This time, though, they came armed with luminol, which showed that no matter how much cleaning had been done, evidence of a crime remained. Numerous possible bloodstains, approximately 20, according to the Charlie Project, were located inside the home and were subsequently sent for DNA testing. Sheriff Bill Franklin told True Crime Daily that the amount of blood indicated great violence had taken place inside the home. Most of the stains appeared in the bedrooms and bathrooms, and Jerry had admitted to burning several items in the garden, including Evan's bed. Furthermore, authorities noticed that a new security system had been installed, and there was no footage available from the day that Susan and Evan supposedly left or from the day they allegedly came back to collect their belongings and vandalize the home. Investigators later confirmed that electronics had been seized from the residence, adding that the search history on the computer taken was not what they'd have expected from an average person. Unfortunately for investigators, the DNA testing on the bloodstains was inconclusive due to the cleaning chemicals used. Still, authorities continued to search for clues. They found out that on June 1st, Jerry had dropped Susan's dogs off at a shelter and changed his security system. 3 days later, he started picking up renovation supplies. Then on July 1st, over a month after the disappearance, he filed for divorce. The divorce was granted on November 15th. It has been noted that there were some inconsistencies in Jerry's story with small details, including the color of the spray paint Susan used to deface the house and the type of vehicle she and her son left in. These details changed throughout his numerous interviews. Upon speaking with neighbors, law enforcement discovered that Jerry had begun burning things in the back garden on Memorial Day weekend. The remnants of Evan's bed smashed up and charred were discovered, with neighbors adding that there was a strong smell of plastic in the neighborhood as Jerry burned items. While scent dogs were brought in to help find any useful evidence, and the dogs led their handlers to the burned barrel, nothing damning was discovered inside it. Since Susan's disappearance, there has been no activity on her phone, credit cards, or social media. Likewise, Evan's phone and social media have laid dormant since he went missing. He has also not been registered at other schools, and his prescriptions have not been refilled. Furthermore, he was due to undergo dental surgery shortly after he went missing and never made his appointment. Susan's friend, Holly, noted that despite Jerry's story, there was no other man in her life and added that she had changed her mind about leaving her husband. So why would she just take off one day? Holly doesn't believe that Susan left of her own volition. Telling the Wetumpka Herald in 2018 she would not just disappear. She wouldn't have left her 10-year-old daughter. She wouldn't go without talking to her and seeing her. She also has theorized that the email she had received from Susan, in which she claimed she had reconciled with her husband, may have been written and sent by Jerry. Susan's other loved ones have echoed similar sentiments. pointing out that the 43-year-old was a devoted pet parent and wouldn't simply abandon her 2 dogs either. Several areas around the family home were searched in the months following the disappearance, but no new clues have been found to help law enforcement bring the case to a close. No suspects have been named in the case, and Jerry Osborne remains the only person of interest, though he has maintained his innocence since 2017. Captain Troy Evans of the Elmore County Sheriff's Office told AL.com, "There were several pieces of evidence and several things that were odd and seemed to point in a certain direction. Obviously nothing to the degree that we had probable cause." He also discussed law enforcement search efforts, stating, "We searched the immediate area around the house, the neighborhood, and the wooded areas there. Every theory and every option that has come available to us or that has come to our attention, we have tried to rule those out, and so far have alleviated all of those." Captain Evans also declined to call the case cold, noting, "And just make sure they're aware of what we've got. I mean, it's not something we're actively doing stuff on every day, but, as things come up, we're still trying to do as much as we can." Jerry has never been charged in connection with the case. He remained at the home on Waterview Lane until early 2020, having put the building up for sale on December 14, 2019. It sold 3 months later. As of 2021, he was living 30 minutes from Holtville with another woman and her children. The pair got engaged on January 25, 2020, the same day he had married Susan in 2014. 43-year-old Susan Lynn Osborne and her son, 14-year-old Evan Eric Chartrand, have been missing since May 29, 2017 from Holtville, Alabama. Susan is described as a white woman with brown hair, blue eyes, and pierced ears. She is 5 feet 3 inches and weighed 120 pounds when she was last seen. Her son, Evan, is described as a white male with brown hair and blue eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he was 5'7" and weighed 160 pounds. Evan is noted to have medical issues which require prescription medication and regular doctor visits. Foul play is suspected in both cases. If you have any information about the disappearance of Susan Osborne or her son, Evan Chartrand, you can contact the Elmore County Sheriff's Department at 334-567-5546. Alternatively, you can call Crime Stoppers at 334-251-7867. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations. And remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.